Guys, welcome back to the channel. It is RacerX, and I am back with my good buddies at the Lewisville Autoplex. See it right there. I've actually got three different vehicles that I want to compare side by side for you today. Three of the most exciting vehicles that Mopar has ever come out with, and I'm gonna line them all up and give you my thoughts on all of them. It's gonna be a lot of fun today. Also, guys, if you are new to my channel, do me a big, gigantic favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. It's located right down there at the bottom, and we are off. Now, only at Lewisville Autoplex would you come out to your little rental and it be between that and that. I just feel like less of a man. I don't know why. So as we know, back in 2015, when Dodge announced the Hellcat engine at 707 horsepower, going in both a sedan and in a muscle car, it really set the automotive world on fire. Imagine over 700 horsepower from the factory, right? Well, obviously our expectations have changed a little bit, but Mopar has kind of done this weird thing, and they just started sticking Hellcats in everything. So it was like, you get a Hellcat, you get a Hellcat for you. So anyway, I thought, you know what? I haven't seen a video yet where somebody has put together all three of the all-wheel drive Hellcat Mopars. So you know what? I thought today I might just go ahead and do that. So as you can see behind me, I do have the Hellcat Durango, of course the Bad Daddy TRX, and of course there is the Trackhawk. So all three of these are all-wheel drive, all feature the Hellcat engine, all are over 700 horsepower. All of these are record-breaking vehicles. So let's go ahead and jump into the comparison of these monsters. Now just take a look at this amazing lineup, kind of a testament to the sort of vehicles that they do get here at the Lewisville Autoplex. But of course you do have a Trackhawk right here. This, of course, a Jeep Grand Cherokee supercharged with the Hellcat engine. This one puts out 707 horsepower. Of course, you have the Ram TRX, also Hellcat equipped, 702 horsepower. So this actually has the least amount of horsepower of the three. It's also the heaviest. And then, of course, as we look at the Durango, this thing's kind of really freaky. This one is 710 horsepower. So this one is actually, this one's actually the most powerful of the bunch. And when you compare the statistics of these things, believe it or not, both the Durango, which seats 7 people, goes 180 miles an hour, the exact same as the Trackhawk. Like I said, there's only a 3 horsepower difference between the two. So 180 mile an hour, 3.5 seconds, 0 to 60 on both the Durango and the Trackhawk, which is just amazing to think about, and 4.1 seconds in the TRX. And a lot of people say, well, why does the TRX make less power than the other two? So you've got a 3 horsepower difference between these two, and then you jump down a little bit more on this particular one, 5 less horsepower than the Trackhawk, but it is because of the air intake. Keep in mind, this is a Baja style truck. So this thing is actually made to go off-roading. They don't want, water and sand and all that stuff getting in the intake. A little more restrictive on the intake, but still over 700 horsepower, I should say. And keep in mind, all of these are record-breaking vehicles, some of the fastest vehicles in the world in their class, which is just remarkable. So here is a quick look under the hood of the Durango Hellcat. As you can see, that beautiful supercharged 6.2 liter iron block V8 right under the hood of this beast. I cannot believe a vehicle that seats 7 people like this goes 180 miles an hour. And really, the Trackhawk, the exact same thing, 180 miles an hour. And this one has maybe slightly more off-road capability than its partner in the Durango over there. But the Durango, as I mentioned, seats 7. So 707 horsepower on this bad boy, 710 on the Durango, as I mentioned. Now this guy's 702 horsepower on this Ram TRX. And you can see just how different it does look. You can't actually see the supercharger until you pull this bad boy off the cover there, and you can see how the intake is very different on this car. You can see up here you've got the functional sort of that Ram Air, if you will, but a different kind of look when you look under the hood of the TRX, but also a beast in this motor, supercharged 6.2 liter. So all three of these, a massive, outstanding power plant. Now, one thing I think that is a little bit unique, like when you look at the Durango, I mean, they really do want you to know that this is Hellcat powered. I mean, there it is in the front. You can see it right here on the side, and that's actually a huge badge, a huge Hellcat badge, much bigger than you would find on a Charger or Challenger. And even when you get around to the back side of the thing, they've got it right there for you to see. So there's no mistaking that this thing is Hellcat powered. Now the TRX, a little different. It doesn't say anything about Hellcat, anything about supercharged, so you just kind of have to know what you're looking at. So for the sort of unsuspecting person that's running around, unless you know exactly what a TRX is, you wouldn't necessarily know that this thing packs that beastly Hellcat engine. And then of course, as you look at the Trackhawk, once again, you will not find a Hellcat badge on this anywhere, but what you will see is this bad boy that does tell you that this is supercharged, which will tell you that it does pack a Hellcat engine in it. And of course, on the back, you do see that this is a Trackhawk. So all three of these vehicles are different. Now, full transparency, this is the only Trackhawk they had between the two stores, Hearst and Lewisville. And this particular one has a few things going on. The other two are stock. This bad boy actually has really a similar setup to what my Hellcat had. So this thing packs like 950 horse. You can see there's a few other things, a B-Woody intake. It's got some pulleys on it, catch can, a few other really fun goodies on this one. So this is not a bone stock Trackhawk, which will make it even more fun to drive. But I just want to kind of be fully transparent on that. So we'll get to drive them here in just a second. Now, all three of these vehicles have absolutely beautiful interiors. So I want to go ahead and show you the Trackhawk first. As you can see, this does have that Alcantara and kind of leather combo on it. It is all Trackhawk. What a beautiful interior. The SRTs typically have the thicker steering wheels on them. As you can see, this is a very neutral driving position in this. This one of the three is probably the most car-like when you get into it. Beautiful gauges. I love kind of the carbon fiber trim on this thing. Really sharp. Beautiful back seats. Very comfortable. Very usable. You got some amenities back here, even for the passengers in the back, and of course a really nice useful area in the back of the Jeep. I'll go ahead and show you that really quick as well. There you go. So a nice area to kind of put your stuff in. Very usable and very fast. Now the TRX, this thing is a beast all in itself. And I've not mentioned this. This thing is actually limited to 118 miles an hour, significantly slower than the other two vehicles. But it's because of these monster tires. As I mentioned, this vehicle is built for a different purpose. You can see the Bilstein shocks here. It's kind of an active terrain system this thing has on it. It sits up much higher. Just a very, very different vehicle, especially from the other two. I feel like the Hellcat and the Trackhawk really do. I'm sorry, the Trackhawk and the Durango kind of make for a really interesting comparison between the two because they're similar. This thing is completely on a different planet. So as you look at the interior, what a gorgeous interior in this truck. I have to mention, I'm a huge fan of the TRX, what they did with the interior. Look at the screen in this thing. What a gorgeous truck, gorgeous seats, as you can see. And then as we jump back here, you can see the back seats are very, very roomy as well. Once again, you do get some amenities for your passengers in the back. And of course, this thing has this has got the ram bar on it and the spare in the back, but of course it's a truck, so you get some usable space back here as well. And of course, the interior of the Durango, equally beautiful. You can see this one is a little bit more driver-centric. It just barely faces the driver in terms of the central infotainment screen. Once again, you do get the bigger SRT steering wheel in here. Gorgeous seats, once again, from SRT, and there's no mistaking, once again, that this is Hellcat powered. And then, of course, the back of the Durango, you do get like the captain's chairs here, which is pretty darn cool. Of course, these things will fold down, and you do get a functional third row in this. The only one of the vehicles that has a functional third row in it. So each of these very different and very, very cool. So to be completely honest, I could probably go on for hours when I talk about all the little bitty features and nuances that all three of these vehicles have, especially when you compare them to each other. But at the end of the day, all three of these are super powerful all-wheel drive Mopars. This is the best of the best when it comes to all-wheel drive that Mopar offers, at least in my opinion. So I figure, you know what? Let's go ahead and take them for a quick run down the street and see how they drive. I am now aboard the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk. Yes, 707 horsepower in this monster. And this one's actually been around a little bit longer than the other two in the Durango and the TRX. This one's actually been out for a few years. The other two are basically new in 2020. So, you know, there's a lot of demand out there for really all of these vehicles. But just sitting in here, it's such a comfortable place to sit. You never really realize that this thing had the power that it does. So let's see how it drives. Now, one quick item of note, in the Trackhawk, you don't actually select your drive modes on the infotainment screen like you do in some of the other models. You actually have a little gear selector down here at your kind of on your right hand here. You do have your auto, sport, and track. You even have launch control in this one, a special launch control button to actually get this thing out of the hole. But with all-wheel drive, man, I think this thing is just going to be a monster. So this particular one is equipped with that B-Woody intake, which really doesn't add any power, but what it does do is it makes this blower way, way louder. So listen to this. Wow. I'm always amazed at the street manners of one of these, because you can be cruising along just incredibly comfortably with a full kind of payload of passengers, stuff in the back, and you would really never know that this thing made the sort of power that it does. But the minute you sort of get that urge, you just let it go. I mean, wow. It is just something else. It's such a Jekyll and Hyde type vehicle. And the great thing about it, because it is all-wheel drive, it really gives you a ton of confidence when you're driving it that the thing's not going to get out of control. So when you're driving a normal Hellcat, a Charger, a Challenger, something like that, you really have to be cognizant of wheel spin. And this one, not quite so much because of the all-wheel drive system. It's pretty cool. One thing that I do just kind of want to point out is the fact that the Trackhawk, is actually the lightest of the three. This one's somewhere around like 5,200 pounds. And by no stretch of the imagination is that light. But when you drive this car, it really doesn't feel all that heavy. It is about 400 pounds lighter than a Durango, about 1,200 pounds lighter than the TRX. And it's just incredible to think about, even in stock form, that this thing goes 0 to 60 very controllably in 3.5 seconds. And it will do it time and time again. The little launch control system here, pretty neat vehicle, the Trackhawk. Yeah, I will freely admit the ride on this thing is fantastic. I mean, I could literally get in the car and just go for a 1,000-mile journey and be unbelievably comfortable in this. But there's just something so eerily satisfying when you have a nice open stretch of road like this to just kind of let it go a little bit. I got to do it at least one more time. It's just so satisfying. Oh, yes. Yeah, this Trackhawk, it is a really well-rounded vehicle. Actually, really enjoyable to drive, kind of very nice neutral feel to it. So let's go drive the Durango and see how it compares. So now I'm actually aboard the Hellcat Durango, and I have to mention, you know, equally as comfortable as the Trackhawk. I do really like the interior, what Dodge did with sort of the gauges, the central infotainment screen in this thing. I mean, it's really, really nice the way that they engineered this. I love the fact you can stick your phone right down here in the middle and it will charge it for you. It's got a really nice kind of open phone charger right here that you don't have to plug in. Obviously, it's wireless. And then, of course, all the gauges here are fantastic. And I really do like the red hue gauges right in front of you. A really nice big digital display here. It's actually really, really nice the way that they engineered this thing. But the really key thing is, how does it drive? So the Durango is kind of a weird deal, because when you really compare it to the other two, this is the most powerful of the bunch. As I mentioned, 710 horsepower. This thing will go 180 miles an hour. Johnny would never be late for soccer practice if you owned one of these. But I mean, 3.5 seconds. This is a third row SUV. It is one of the most powerful, I believe it is actually the most powerful third row SUV in the world. It is just really, really impressive what Dodge has done with this. But what's really impressive as well is the fact that it just rides so nice. I mean, it really does ride kind of like a 6-cylinder, you know, Caravan would or something. I mean, it's so smooth, but then when you step on the throttle, just listen to it. It's so nice and linear the way this thing delivers power. You're stacking up some mile an hour. This thing is just an insane car. It really is. Yeah, the street manners on the Durango Hellcat are just fantastic. This thing has a buttery smooth ride to it. It is so nice and enjoyable to just get in this and cruise. You actually don't hear it. Like I said, the Trackhawk had that B Woody intake on it, which really made the blower loud. This one's a little more subdued. You can see from the outside of it, I mean, it is not so really in your face that it wouldn't be, you know, livable. Sometimes you get vehicles that are so in your face and outrageous. This one has an aggressive look to it for a third row SUV, but it doesn't look crazy, which in some people's minds might be a good thing. But a very enjoyable, very nice neutral driving feel to this Durango. One of the things that actually cracks me up about the Hellcat Durango is the fact, like, this is the air conditioning page. This is a 7-person third row SUV. Look, there's a helmet on the passenger person for your climate control. It's just so funny because it's not like a McLaren, right? I mean, but you do get a helmet person with this car as well. Just kind of a wacky thing. So really the idea here is to compare the Trackhawk to the Durango Hellcat, and I have to admit the driving experience in these two vehicles is quite similar. Now there are some things about the Durango that I don't like quite as well. Obviously, the sunroof is a little bit smaller than in the Trackhawk. Visibility is great in both of these things. I will say that the center kind of infotainment screen area, I actually like it better in the Durango than I do in the Trackhawk. I think I love the black gauges, in terms of the central screen here. Your gauges are fantastic right in front of you. A little bit bigger screen in this one. So I love just the black trim on the inside of this. It's really well done, the inside of this. But in terms of the way they drive, they're actually quite similar. You actually almost can't even tell there's a third row back there, even though this one is just a little bit heavier. It doesn't really feel like it's any slower, which is the crazy part about it. It's just so funny to me driving this because Dodge really did successfully make the quintessential soccer mom vehicle an absolute blast, a ton of fun to drive. Just listen to this thing as you get on it. Oh man, the power is so good in this, and it drives so nice. I just have to admit, both the Trackhawk and the Durango, they have such a nice firm power delivery, but it feels very controllable in the way it delivers the power because of the all-wheel drive. It never feels like it's out of control. It just feels like it goes, which is great because you could literally put somebody in this that's not experienced or not nearly as experienced, say somebody like myself, and you would still have a lot of confidence that the vehicle's not going to get all out of sorts on them because the all-wheel drive system really does work on this, and it really just makes the vehicle feel very predictable, which is great. It's just so funny because I really shouldn't like driving this thing as much as I do, but it really does put a smile on my face. It's a very satisfying vehicle to drive. So yeah, I'm a fan of the Durango Hellcat. Let's go drive the TRX to see how that compares. Now, before I actually even drive the TRX, I just kind of wanted to give you one more quick look at it. I went ahead and moved it just so you could get a better look at it. But I mean, the road presence on this thing is just incredible to me. I mean, what a fantastic looking truck. I love the fact that this is a wide body. I mean, the other two, they don't have any wide bodies on them to kind of tell them apart. The TRX, most definitely, you can literally see right through the truck when you look through that. And in the back, I mean, obviously wide body as well, which is why it has to have these three lights because the vehicle is so wide, it sits up so high. But I mean, this thing has a serious road presence to it. So now I'm actually aboard the Ram TRX, and I have to admit, I've mentioned this in the past, but what a fantastic interior on this truck. It is beautiful in here. The seats are fantastic. Really, the entire situation here is great. I absolutely love the dash here. It looks almost 3D. Great steering wheel with obviously the leather and kind of the suede combination. You also get this huge infotainment screen right here in the middle that you can do a ton with. And there are tons of settings on the TRX. This truck was really built for something entirely different than the other two. As I mentioned, this one, the top speed is like 118 mile an hour. It's limited because of the tires. This thing is a Baja style truck. It's not made to be kind of a road warrior, which it does well, but this thing was really made to be off-roading and dunes and creeks and all sorts of interesting things, and it does that fantastic. Not to mention the thing is pretty darn fast, and I absolutely love the interior, how pretty it is here. They have a lot of little bitty things in this truck that just work really, really well. They've got all sorts of settings, as I mentioned. They've got like sand, they've got snow, they've got wet, they've just all sorts of stuff, and this full-size truck has launch control as well, which is pretty darn cool. So as I'm getting to drive around this TRX, I've said it in the past, there's not much about this truck that I really do not like. Yes, it is the heaviest of the bunch when you compare it to the other two, right? I mean, this thing is 1,200 pounds heavier than a Trackhawk. It's much bigger, it sits up higher. I mean, just everything about it is just bigger. But because of the gearing in this, it really doesn't feel heavy at all. It actually feels quite responsive. Listen to it. Oh, yeah, this is fantastic. And keep in mind, it's like comparing bodybuilders at a show. It's like you get to a show and you see all these guys that are built and you kind of get used to that, but at the same time, this thing still goes 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. This is a full-size truck. That is incredibly fast. The all-wheel drive system in this is great. The obviously the suspension in this thing is fantastic. I'm going over bumps and you can't even feel them. It's just a really nice package in this Ram, and boy, it sounds so good. It is so responsive for a truck. There's nothing that should be this big that is that responsive. It is just insane what Ram was able to do when they built this thing. Yeah, I will say it is a little harder to fly under the radar in a TRX. Obviously with the Durango and the Trackhawk, still look fantastic and a very really aggressive looking SUVs, but they do fly under the radar a little bit more than this. I've only been driving it a few minutes and I've already had several people stop and give me a thumbs up. I mean, this thing just being bigger, it just makes a statement. Of course, this thing is red too, but man, the Ram bar and everything about this just screams aggressive, and I really do like that. It's sort of a funny argument with the TRX because a lot of people will say, well, why would you go out and spend the kind of money that a TRX costs when it's limited to 118 miles an hour? But keep in mind, this thing almost reaches its top speed in the quarter mile, which is just kind of funny. And how often will you really be out cruising the roads where 118 mile an hour just simply isn't adequate? So yeah, maybe this isn't a roll race monster, but certainly for normal driving and just kind of everyday cruising, this thing is fantastic. I got it cool in my seats right now because it's 187 degrees outside. And then when you feel the need, you can still just romp it. Oh, wow. Okay, yep, and it goes. This is the fastest gasoline production truck in the world, and you do feel it when you drive it. And like I said, it doesn't feel heavy when you drive it, even though, I mean, it's not light, but this Hellcat really gets this monster moving. And this TRX really is a freak because as fast as it is on the road, and I mean, it's fantastic driving manners on this truck. I mean, it's just absorbed bumps, it looks good, but this has all that off-road capability that the other two lack. And that's the other thing, is it's not that the Trackhawk doesn't have some off-road capability, it certainly does, and the same with the Durango to a degree. But this one's next level when it comes to being able to wade water and go up hills and all that kind of stuff. That's what this thing was made to do. So, it does a lot of things well, this TRX, not to mention you can tow with it. And of course, you've got that nice big truck bed in the back, so you could haul stuff with it. I mean, it just really does everything well. So how do you sum up all three of really the best all-wheel drive Mopars? The Durango, Hellcat, the Trackhawk, and the Ram TRX. Well, the Trackhawk and the Durango actually have a very similar driving feel. A little bit different on the inside. Both of them have their merits. Both are a ton of fun, have great rides, and they're fantastic because of the all-wheel drive system. The power comes on nice and firm, but it's predictable, and it just makes for a great driving experience. The Ram TRX is just another planet different. I mean, it is, it feels faster than kind of it is. You sit up nice and high in this. The suspension in this thing is absolutely fantastic. Just a very different vehicle. As I mentioned, the other two will go 180 miles an hour. This thing is limited to like 118, but it still goes 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds. So it's still very fast in its own right. And all of these three things are basically record-breaking vehicles. So you're going to get your money's worth whether you buy any of them. So there's really no right or wrong. I mean, if you want to haul a lot of people, the Durango's fantastic and it will just get the job done. The Trackhawk, you get a little bit more off-road capability, still hauls 5 people very comfortably, has a little bit more of a car type ride to it, but great power delivery. And of course the Ram TRX is just an absolute freak because it has all that off-road capability. It looks absolutely fantastic. It stands out on the road, and it's just a fantastic interior on this thing. I am a big fan of all of them, so there's really no right or wrong. It really just depends on your personal preference and what your needs are. All right, well, that about wraps up my review of the most powerful Mopar all-wheel drive cars out there. It's pretty darn cool when you get one from Jeep, one from Ram, and of course one from Dodge. Very, very neat lineup. Which one of these cars is your favorite? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys on the next one. So until then, RacerX.